Right, this one's Dendrobium harveyanum. This has been in so many video clips on and off. It's got an ego now. It pushes to the front saying, "Me first, I'm your best." Yeah, well, you're one of the good ones, but you're not necessarily the best. Don't get cocky. Anyway, this is on its last flowering for this year, I believe. It's got this spike here to go. It's got this one that for some reason blasted its lower end, but nonetheless the four buds left on it are going to flower shortly. That should open soon. This one is capable of pushing out more than one spike per cane. That's why it's done so well this year. But I got this late in last year, so it's only had one winter with me. So I don't know how well it's going to do in the future, but this year it's been a spectacle. However, on the new growth front, not a light. There are no signs whatsoever of new canes. Hopefully it's just one of those that does that thing where it won't push up its new growth until it's finished flowering. I believe that if you have a plant that you really want to grow on into sort of specimen size and things like that, sometimes you should sacrifice the flower spikes and actually put the energy into the canes, and then next year take your flowers. But anyway, this has been a stunner this year. It's coming to the end of its flowering period, which has been incredibly long. This is a star performer for me. I'm going to be very interested, with a little bit of trepidation, how it does next year. It's still going to push some canes out on its existing canes, of that I am sure. Time will tell, but I do need some new canes. So that's Dendrobium harveyanum. It is a semi-deciduous dendrobium, but I haven't had it long enough to work out what sort of cycle it is. As I said, some dendrobiums have got almost a 3-year cycle before they've actually got leafless canes. We'll see how this one does, but it's done well for me. Good plant. And this spindly monster is another star performer. This is Dendrobium hercoglossum, probably my all-time favourite orchid. And this is the reason, if I can get down to the appropriate place. Those are beautiful little flowers. I've said it before, I can't say it enough. It's what I call a typical pendulous dendrobium. Let me get round where I can sort of show you the effect. These are last year's canes. They pushed on really well and they stick bolt upright. Then it goes through the winter and they slow down. I'm not going to say they stop growing, because for me they don't, because they don't get a proper winter rest. So they grow on a little bit in the winter. Then the following season they start growing again. So although it's classed as a deciduous cane dendrobium, as you can see the older canes have lost an awful lot of leaves and they flower on the bald part, shall I say. The canes still have leaves on the end, and when they finish flowering they will carry on growing for a while. So in successive years the flowers just move down the cane a bit. I mean, if you take a look at this cane, these are, it's flowered back here. This year it's flowering here. Next year it'll flower up there. So the canes don't seem to completely die back and become useless. It keeps going. I love it. What more can you want from a dendrobium? It just keeps flowering over and over again on the same canes. And up there at the base there are signs of life. So I've now got some new canes starting as well. I would thoroughly recommend getting one of those if you've got a suitable environment. Beautiful flowers. Small, but absolutely stunning. And a plant that grows different to anything else I've got. It just never stops growing. The canes just seem to extend another 3 or 4 inches each year, which allows them to put out 4 or 5 flower spikes in that area the following year, and then it pushes on again. As you can see, this is quite an old cane. It's still got a growing tip on it. It's still on the move. Lovely plant. Can't recommend it enough. So that's hercoglossum. This is Dendrobium Prima Dona. This is what I call one of my dangly dendrobiums. This is a typical caneless dendrobium. It's got more bald canes than it has got ones with leaves on. This is the last old cane that's still actually got some leaves on. It is pushing up some new growth. This did not flower this year, and it should have done. So I'm going to have to stick this in the category that if I don't get a dry, bright, cool winter rest, I'm not going to give you any flowers, and it's a shame because they're lovely. So I'll let these canes grow on, and then I'll see what I can do when this winter comes, ready for next spring. We'll see how it does. Another gangly plant. That's just how it is. This was from a friend at the Orchid Society who produced a load of his own seedlings and was selling them off cheap. So relatively it's a youngish plant. Truly deciduous, dumps its leaves on the canes. That's my latest cane. That's not this year's growth, that's last year's growth that still has a growing tip and is still growing. So it didn't actually stop growing that cane through the winter. It's just showing signs of life in the base. There is a new cane coming up. This did not flower at any point. I'm still not sure whether this is a I must have a winter rest type dendrobium, or just that it was a relatively young plant. It got disturbed at the wrong time of year and upset its cycle, because strictly speaking that cane shouldn't have carried on growing through the winter and is still growing now. But with new canes coming on, we'll see how it progresses this year. My job is to push that cane as hard as I can, feed and water, and try and get it as big as that one. Then it can go into the winter time. It will get a cool winter rest this time. It's going to go into that category as best I can, and then we'll see what those two canes do next year. It's worth the effort. Beautiful, beautiful purple flower. I love it. But it's not going to be a lot of good for me if I can't actually get it to flower. Without the flowers, it's a pot full of sticks and a big cane. Okay, that's that one. That was, I can't remember whether I said, that is glomeratum. A very nice plant. Beautiful flowers. If you can grow it well, then it's worth having. This is my anosmum semi-alba. It did actually produce, well, it produced a pair of flowers, but one aborted before it opened. I don't know whether it had help, because I have had some helpers in the winter time and on into the spring, but nonetheless it did produce one flower. It is a lovely flower. It has got the wonderful raspberry scent, but I always wanted the true anosmum, you know, with the deeper colour. This has got a nice new cane coming on. I'll push that cane hard. True deciduous type. It does drop all its leaves from the canes and then flowers on those bald canes. Okay, so this one's coming on. It's not a strong plant, it's not an old plant, it's a relatively young one, but if it can push up a nice strong single cane this year, I'm pretty sure that the following year it will push up 2 or 3 or even more. So it's quite a long-term project to get that into a good sized plant. It was very young when I got it. I'm willing to put the effort in. Lovely flower, lovely scent. This one is my Dendrobium Nestor. That was filmed many times. Such a beautiful show of flowers, but that wasn't my show. I bought it in flower. It's my job now to try and get it to do it again. It did have the big deciduous cane when I got it. It had the little deciduous leafless cane when I got it, and it had this one, the one that had all the flowers on. And at the time I said, you know, the leaves are coming off, it's got some leaves at the base, that's good because at least it can photosynthesize, put some energy in the plant. It's done that and it's now pushing up a lovely strong new growth. I wish I could have got 2, but 1 will do for now. And it is a strong new growth. It's getting watered and fed well on a very regular basis. It's almost, it certainly never dries out. It just gets watered and fed. I've got to push that growth on. But a little surprise, on the cane that flowered, with the yellow leaves on the end, that cane's decided to start growing again. Now that's not normal for this type of plant. Anyway, that's Nestor. Lovely new growth coming on. Right, so this little lot are all mounts, so they've all just come down out of the gods, and the bright lights, which is where they like it. These, well, apart from one that I'm sneaking in, are all deciduous cane type dendrobiums, most of which would come into the category, probably nearly all of them would come into the dry winter rest types. Okay, this is friedericksianum, I think. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Friedrichsen. This has decided to put some buds out. I had a look and they're later than the last time it flowered. It has flowered for me before. Typical deciduous cane dendrobium that flops. You know, basically these are the really old canes hanging downwards. Most of this one sticking out here, and most of those with leaves on sticking up there were my canes from last year. They've grown very well. This year's canes are starting now. You can see one buried at the back there, and a little one coming out there. And there's another couple of quite tall ones round the back. And another one coming out there. So far this year, 1, 2, 3, 4, probably 5 new canes. That's not bad. That's a little less than last year, but it's still early days as far as its growing season is concerned. There's an awful lot of these dendrobiums for me don't get going till May. You know, you'd think, well, it's March, you know, March, the day length gets nice and long, the temperatures get up, the light gets better, let's get going. Nope, they wait. That's what they do for me. It might be something to do with the way they get treated in the winter. This one should have a definitive cool, dry, bright winter rest. That's its category. Therefore it shouldn't flower. Now I'm not going to say that's a major success by not having a rest. Think what it might be if it had had that rest. Instead of one measly little flower spike with 3 buds on, it could have had a mass blooming. So I think that one really does need the rest. If you own that one, give it the rest, and I'm sure you'll get a lot more blooms than that effort that I've got there. So that's that one. You can go down there. This is the one with the funny bulbs. See, funny bulbs. They get bulbous lumps halfway up the cane. This one's pushing out new canes all over the place. This was a young plant. I never expected flowers off of this one. However, those ones with the nice bulbous bits on, looking at pictures, are relatively mature, and it's now pushing out loads of new canes. So who knows what those would produce next year. You know the cycle. Grow your new canes, get them as big and strong as possible, put them through the winter with whatever treatment you think the plant needs. The following spring you might get some flowers. What you might get is a cane that remains dormant for that year, drops its leaves at the end of that growing season, and flowers on the bare canes the following spring. It's like a 2.5 year cycle some of them have got. Anyway, this one comes into the cool winter rest category. This is findlayanum. Thank you, Mr. Findley, for finding us this one. Yet to flower for me, but it is a young plant. Hopefully with, what have we got there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 new canes and some new roots coming out, because that really didn't have a very good root system. It's the other strange thing with a lot of these deciduous cane dendrobiums is that they grow a root system to go with their new canes, but they don't keep it. They seem to let a lot of those roots die off and then produce a new set with the next lot of new canes. So when you see some dying roots on these type of dendrobiums, I personally wouldn't worry that much. It's going to put some new ones out. And each year it seems to put out a better set. That's the theory anyway. So that's that one. No flowers yet. This is another young plant. However, being a young plant, that cane did actually flower last year. But it's like a dormant plant at the moment. It's not doing much. The best looking cane, that little one there, black hair type, you can see the tiny little black hairs on the cane as you go up. It's a category of dendrobium which I can't be bothered to go and look up. I just call them black hair types. This is jaintianum. It has flowered on those canes, but I didn't grow those canes. They came with it. Maybe these two canes will push on. They're the youngest, and maybe they'll flower next year. But I mean, as you can see, that is an incredibly young plant, and it hasn't really got a hold yet. My expression is it hasn't caught, it hasn't taken off. So, but not dead yet. We'll see how it does. You know, I've got a horrible feeling on the top of that cane there. That might be a nubbin. That'd be nice. Anyway, we shall wait and see. Strictly speaking, a cool winter rest, which certainly last winter it didn't get. This one, oh, he says, lifting it up very carefully because it's actually in flower, is a young plant. Doesn't grow enormous canes. This is Chapiensi. It's no good turning it round. I know the tag's fallen off. It's buried down in amongst that lot somewhere. I'm not digging it out. But this has lovely little flowers on it. Flowers quite regularly. It's not a bad bloomer for me. There's another bud coming there. Yay. It is pushing out its new canes now. 1, 2, 3. 3 on a young plant like that's not bad. And like I say, there's still plenty of growing season left just because that's its latest 3 new canes. It's got plenty of time to push out more. This is semi-deciduous, but it hasn't done that thing yet. All the canes I've got on what is still a very young plant have still got some leaves on them. It's going to drop a fair old few of those during the summer and autumn. Okay, so that one's Chapiensi. It's classed as a hybrid because it's crossed with something, and the poor guy got a seed pod on a plant. The only other plants near it were other Chapiensis, but he has no guarantee that's what pollen was actually used, so he has to call them crossed with self, probably. So that's that one. And then this one is not a dendrobium, but I feel sorry for it. Once upon a time in its history, it was classed as a dendrobium. So I'm not being totally out of character, but it's now, I'm going to have to read it, I always forget. Bifrenaria harrisoniae. And it's a funny looking plant, and it sat there and did nothing for a very long time, and then it started pushing out some new roots. I thought, oh, it's not dead. And then, literally over the last couple of weeks, it started to push out some new growths. One on that side at the back, and one on that side at the back. So it's coming on. But once upon a time, in the dim and distant past, these were in one of the dendrobium categories. So I like to think of it as a dendrobium. Otherwise, the poor little thing's all on his own. So that's that one. That's that little set. On to the next one. This next 3 I'm going to do together for no other reason than they live together. This is trigonopus. Pushed up 2 nice canes once upon a time. That was last spring effectively. It's never flowered for me. Another black hair type. I love those canes. If you get really close, which you can't get that close with the camera. But not doing a flipping thing. No sign of new roots and no signs of new growths. But I far from give up on that. It did that last year, and then suddenly it pushed out, originally those 4 little canes down the bottom there, 3 of which are now totally deciduous. They've gone. If they were going to flower, they've passed their chance, so they're not going to. But it's a young plant. It's got to be given time. But I love the plant. I like the dark leaves. I like the hairy canes. And I like the way it shaped itself. Maybe those 2 canes will flower next year, I don't know. So trigonopus, it's a nice little plant, I like it, even though it hasn't flowered yet. Give it a chance. And this cheeky little monkey, this is senile. I've had this one, and those tatty looking bulbs down the bottom did actually flower for me last year. However, this spring, on those new canes, those 3, not a light. Those are good strong canes for this type of plant. It's also just started to move. It's just put 2 new growths up. Again, in May. You'd think it would get going earlier in the year, but I've noticed quite a few dendrobiums for me, in my environment, seem to start growing late. but they keep growing well into the winter. They don't sort of stop at the end of September or something, they keep at it. So they just seem to have a later season. Anyway, I've seen these for sale at Burnham's with like 2 tatty little bulbs like that for quite a bit of money. This, however, is not a bad looking plant. It has flowered, but it didn't this year. I would suggest, as a consequence of the treatment it had, if that doesn't get a cool winter rest, it isn't going to flower. It's just one of those in that category. I'll have to think about what I'm going to do with that. It's a small plant. I have this theory that come this winter time, get it into, well, get past Christmas and New Year and get all the frivolities out of the way and the bells and the whistles and the balloons and the party poppers, and settle down to normality again in the depths of our winter in the UK. I might lift some of these and take them up into what is effectively my bedroom, which faces southwest, so it's the brightest upstairs window I've got. Settle them down on that windowsill, turn the radiator off, shut the door on them. That will take the temperature down in that room quite a bit without dropping the light too much. That's as good a winter rest as I can offer, and I'll be banished to the little spare room in the front and the small bed. So be it. I might actually give them that chance. I thought I'd try it without this year, and it looks like for some of the plants it didn't work. For some it's made not a jot of difference. So that's Dendrobium senile. So called because it looks like an old man with little grey hairs all over it. Don't know whether that's taking the mickey out of me or not. Damn cheek. This is the squash grape plant. I don't know why I like this, but I do. I've forgotten what it's called. Jenkinsii. This has pushed out a lot of new growths up this end. Yeah, all those lighter coloured bulbs are new growths. And that nice big one down the bottom there. And a couple there. And a few there as well. This is growing well. This is turning into what I would call a specimen plant for type. Has it flowered? Has it hell? Not a light. And it probably isn't going to this year now. It's gone past the point where it ought to be flowering. You never know. I never give up. Not on dendrobiums anyway. It's a good plant. It's a specimen sized plant and it's got a lot of new growths. And it didn't flower this year despite having a reasonable amount of new growths that it grew last season. So I think this one again has to come into the category of if it doesn't get that cool dry winter rest, it's not going to flower. Not for me. So this may end up on the bedroom windowsill because I want to see this flower. It's a good plant. I love it. Right, that's those few. I don't know, as I said, they just go together for me because they live together on a particular hanging place, so they're always together, like little sisters and cousins. Right, this one has had a nickname in the past because of the surprise on my face when I suddenly saw the flower spike, but I'm not going to use that anymore, it might offend people. But it's a primary cross, it's Dendrobium farmeri crossed with griffithianum, which is a lot of thuths. It's had one flower spike on it, and I said there were nubbins all over the place. Those two on that little cane there have just started to swell. That's where the only flower spike so far has been. That's where there will be another one soon. That's where there will be another one soon. And up the back there, I think that one's just started to move as well. And there's one tucked under that top leaf that is definitely on the move. I think pushing that plant forward, I may have 2 or 3 spikes at the same time, followed by another couple more. It's a stunner, it really is. I was so surprised when that flower spike came out. But the blighter didn't last long, so it would be nice if some of these next set of blooms actually come out in a sequence, because then it'll be in flower over a longer period. But then if that, given the time of year and the shows and things and displays that we're doing at the Orchid Society coming up in the not too distant future, obviously if that's got 2 or 3 flower spikes out at the same time, it'll be taking a trip for others to see. So that's that one. And last but not least, they always say end on a high note. Out of my Dendrobium nobiles, this is the real star performer, and it's still performing. It started at the beginning of January and it's still going on. This is Dendrobium Prima Dona. It's a nobile type. It's a beauty, and that fog has just gone right up my trouser leg. Thank you very much. It's just starting to put out a new cane there. That's a new cane there. There's another one up the back that is in fact a new cane, and it's flowering. It's an incredibly strong grower, this thing. It just won't stop. It loves everything about everything in this environment. Another new cane round the back here, pushing up strong. It's a beauty. It does well for me, and it's just a good plant. It just keeps going on and on. So, probably my two favourite plants next to each other at the moment. I don't think pink and yellow go together, but I thought I'd end looking at those. Thanks for watching this update series. I did do it for me, but I thought I'd share it at the same time. I've now benchmarked every single plant in my collection at the start of the growing season, or a little bit into the growing season, so that at the end of the growing season, come November, December, when it's cold and dreary and miserable, I can have another look at my plants and pat myself on the back as to how well they've done this year in the growing season. Well, let's hope that's what I can do. Thanks for staying with it. Sorry some of them were a bit long. Thanks for the new subscribers that have joined part way through. Perhaps you'll find some time to go back and watch the whole series if you haven't done already. So that's the end of my May updates. Thanks for hanging in there. Thanks for joining me on this little adventure. And I'll see you again after I've had a well-earned rest without this camera in my hand. See you next time. Bye for now.